out there may not realize that the comic books have been with us for a long time, since the beginning of the past century in fact. Comics as we know them were born about the same time as the other forms of popular entertainment like movies and the radio. One of filmdom's earliest stars, and one of the biggest in fact, was Charlie Chaplin. It is then appropriate that this visionary filmmaker and comedian would also be one of our first comic book characters featured in his own book. The comic book I have here, which is Charlie Chaplin's Comic Capers from S&A, it arrived about 1917, features art by comic strip legend E.C. Segar. He's also the guy who created Popeye the Sailor Man. These strips were originally published in the newspapers. And actually, it's kind of like the Garfield strips and the Calvin and Hobbes strips that you're familiar with anymore, because it's kind of more akin to one of those kind of publications, in that it's actually a bunch of comic book strips that was taken from the newspapers and republished in this format. But yet, this comic book, it actually serves as a prototype for what would later on become the comic books that we know today. This isn't a comic book itself, it's Look magazine, but there is something interesting about this book other than the Rita Hayworth cover. This book is from February 27, 1940. The Superman strip is actually Superman captures Hitler and Stalin. And in this story, it's just a 2-page article. It shows what Superman would do if he had actually existed, I guess, at the time, and how he would have put an end to the war before he even really got a chance to get started. This 2-page strip here, now keep in mind, when this strip came out, Superman wasn't a full 2 years old yet. If you notice, it's kind of a 2-color deal there. This is actually produced by Siegel and Schuster, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman. This is the actual number 4 Superman from 1940. This is important for a number of reasons, because it also features a second appearance of his arch nemesis, Lex Luthor. And this also features the second mention of the Daily Planet. The Daily Planet actually was mentioned in another story before this, as well as Lex Luthor's appearance, but it was also called the Daily Star before that. But it was kind of like an early form of the Daily Planet. This is, by the way, is not Lex Luthor here on the cover. Even though he's a bald man running, that's not Lex. Lex was actually a redheaded guy in the beginning. I hope you enjoyed a brief look at the history of comic books in this past century of ours. If you're interested in finding out more about comic books, you might want to check your local library or shops in your area, or you might want to go on the internet where there's plenty of websites that can tell you about the history of these characters and these books and other items.